No, 100%. I mean, obviously right now and over the last couple of years, we've seen generative AI models that have become commercially available that are quite extraordinary, right? Like they do have some amazing, especially technical abilities. And as we've addressed, there is some of those personal aspects that is missing, and it does require sort of the human voice to be injected into it. But I think we are a long way away from, the best versions of AI that we will come to see in our lifetime.
Right.
And so I'm curious about, particularly for young people right now, should we be scared or should we be excited for the future of AI and technology?
Well, I don't think it ever benefits anyone to be scared. I think we need to be skeptical. I think we need to
Good point.
be smarter than the other times before when technology has come out.
No.
We are smarter. So let's really see what this is bringing to the table. I mean, I certainly didn't cry when my rotary phone turned into my cell phone. I think I'm ecstatic that I can have that with me. A landline, So, with everything, technology, of course, brings the good, the bad, and the ugly, as they say. So if enough people want it to be good and use it for good, we have to be. But we can't have our head in the sand and think no one's going to use it for their own best, self-interest. Right. And I think, is it Twitter, whatever, we're banning, is it Twitter we're trying to ban off, get out of, or one of the
TikTok.
TikTok, right? Lots of scuttle about, TikTok and it's positive or negative or bad influence. So there are a lot of good, and then there's going to be some things that really do have to be seen as, not benefiting the whole.
Yeah.
No is not a bad word. And you can say no, not now. That's even better. But no isn't a bad word, and that something is wrong versus right. There is a line there. And so we have to be able to discern between those things.
Yeah. I love that, Lorri.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
No, nothing to add on your front, Stacy?
Well, nothing better than that. I mean, fear isn't, you're right. Fear is never a valuable way of looking at the world. So I think that's a beautiful point. And I think, Rashad Tabakawala talks a lot about AI and the future of AI. And, there's a train you can't stop. That ship has sailed in ways that, that's growth in technology and progress. The problem is that human beings are not thoughtful when we are, negligent, right? So we've been negligent. We haven't paid attention to the emotional side of humanity. We have forfeited our own humanity for technology. If we participate and engage the emotional needs of the community, we would be less inclined to misuse the technology. So again, to Lori's point, if we don't collectively think it's helpful or useful, we should collectively come together and write it. Yeah. So I think about the movement and the sixth level is a place for reasonable people who have new ideas, who want to participate in this idea of civility, of mutuality, to come together and to begin to collect our better versions of ourselves to influence the world.
Yeah.
I guess we just don't have, we are not collecting the people in the middle. We have a lot of the extremes, and there are people in the middle who are kind of waiting for some agency or body that we relied on in times before to make right, to level set. And there isn't that system anymore. That system is broken. So we need to bring people together who are willing to practice 4 core differentiators that create healthy social dynamics. I think I said this yesterday at the event that, really what we're talking about is social dynamics. And we really need to behave better, and we need principles to help us perform better together.
Wow.
Just want to say, I think we have a model in this country that we have done this, and I think we're ignoring it. How many people used to smoke cigarettes? Everybody. It was on every ad, every movie. I've shown my kids movies of the past, and they just find it completely offensive that there's people smoking in movies. And how did that happen? We eradicated tobacco smoking in this country, a right. It was a human right that everybody smoked. And how did we do that? There are great methods to show how you can create a social movement around that. Something as simple as buckling your seatbelt. Another one. When I grew up, there weren't seatbelts. We were thrown in the back of the car. You could tell the stories and think that's just idiotic. Getting in the car today, no one would think don't really buckle your seatbelt. We've seen, that there's no reason not to really. I mean, it seems like there's no other choice but to do that. Okay. So I think we've done, especially around health and safety is my point. Those are very big health and safety movements. If we could take those models and apply them to other things, I think we would be much better off. There's another story, and I can't even remember. I think it was in What the Dog Saw book by Malcolm Gladwell about an individual who was a doctor helping people overseas with very challenging medical problems, and came to the States and said, we have a gun problem here. And he actually figured out how to reduce the amount of people wanting or needing to feel the need to carry guns and shoot other people. And again, those models, we need to look at what's working, find how that worked, and then be able to replicate it in different environments. And we have the power to do that. You're here.
I want to stay on this topic of AI for a second, and I want to go back to, it was mentioned previously, deepfakes. We've seen deepfakes advance quite significantly to the point where they're almost indistinguishable from reality, right? And it's gotten people into some troubling situations. We've seen, for example, men, very famous men, and particularly in politics, being presented doing inappropriate things, right? Or doing things that are illegal in ways. And on the other side, we've seen women, famous women, Taylor Swift, for example. I know there's a big lawsuit going out against people doing this to her, who are using deep fakes to present her in pornography that she was never actually a part of. And again, an example there of this sort of gender inequality there, right? We're, to my knowledge, not seeing a lot of these pornography images of famous men, but we are seeing a lot of famous women. I'm curious about your perspective on this, right? How must we move forward here? I mean, Taylor Swift has filed lawsuits against so many people because her face has been used on someone else's body in pornographic films. And I think that is a terrifying potential, right? And I think that is something that injects a lot of fear into particularly my generation. I'm curious about your perspective on this. How must we control this? How must we, put some boundaries in place to ensure that people are safe?
Well, include women in the creation of protections for these kinds of things. Listen, deep fake is a crime.
Yeah. So,
it's criminal, right? And there are two parts of the question. One, I will just break it down into two. One is how to correct for this, and two is what it is. Mm-hmm. It's criminal behavior that is rampant. Well, there is an epidemic. There's a rape epidemic, right? We live in a rape culture. I don't think there's one woman who ever leaves their house that isn't thinking about their own safety. And there isn't one father or mother who's thinking about their daughter or child being vulnerable to that. So we're all living in a culture that has promoted and accepted this for the last 40 years. It's been the most popular theme in crime and CSI TV shows. It's a very sensationalized crime.
Right.
And it is the result of women being left out of the solutions, the rules, the justice system.
We were seeing this early on with the idea of paparazzi, right? Just people imposing themselves, crossing the line and allowing it to happen. We haven't learned much from that because obviously we've had some instances of paparazzi winning lawsuits and being in the public space. And there's this persona even or this idea that if you are in the public space, that you can be used for anything, that you are a part of the public. And so you're not you, and so you don't own yourself and you don't own anything about you. I think actually Taylor Swift has done the best job because she has taken people, she has tried to use the justice system, the system in place, to make things right. She also had an encounter with a gentleman that was unfortunate, and she fought it and she won. But there's been times when the justice system hasn't worked for her, like her own music, and she had to take it upon herself to re-sing every song that she ever wrote to take her voice back. So she is a model of how we have to continue to, which by the way was ingenious. And it also took a lot of work and effort. I don't know who would do that.
Right.
In the midst of all of her other music that she was doing and having her life. So if she can't tackle these issues, then no one else is going to be prepared to do it. But as you said, it's illegal. That this is anybody can be subject to any of this.
Definitely.
We're seeing this in schools with bullying and some bad behavior of people, and we haven't done well with bullies in our society in terms of stopping bullying. Even so, we have a lot of work to do in this realm. And the problem is, it's coming out in mass, and we haven't caught up yet. But it should just be known as a wrong and be able to pull down. Or take out.
And it does also really shed light on the real, the justice system and how poorly it is, how poorly justice is protected and how broken the system is and who it serves and who it doesn't serve.
Totally. No, 100% agree. I think, the whole deep fake, thing is terrifying, right? And I think that, and to your point, it's completely illegal. You are using someone else's image, right, and presenting them to be doing something or to be someone that they're not.
But the crime is that you're exposing, you're aggressing. It's an aggressive crime. It's not just using somebody's face.
Not
it's
at all.
Aggressive.
Right.
It's
exactly. Yeah, and I think, and that's
violent.
It's one of the terrifying things. And I think for me, I think about ways in which that can impact people in the future, right? Particularly in leadership roles. And I think about it more on the emotional level, particularly someone like Taylor Swift, right? She is a leader, right? And she's a very publicly facing leader. And I think that many people look up to her. But it goes back to this almost like stalking culture. And obviously celebrities have dealt with this forever. But I think this deep fake, it sort of brings like an extra level of danger to it. It sort of allows for this extra level of obsession and followship for the general public to target these individuals. And I think that's a terrifying thing.
Also, psychological disease. Like these are as a psychologist.
Right.
These are abnormalities that we are developing in human beings, in our culture and in our society. We are fostering our own disease.
Right.
We are creating our own, the demise of a healthy psychology.
Right.
By feeding people really very savage, objectifying ways of being, as though we are not self-reflective, we're not seeing mutuality. It's interesting because what came out of the research of the Stone Center at Wellesley College in 1971-ish was that we discovered that the way women were developed is that women were encouraged to connect as children. They were provided the expansive expression, a wide range of expression, and that we developed the ethic of care, and that women are not the opposite of men. And the way men grow is that they, as young children, learn to separate from their mothers and their fathers, right? To cut off their emotions.
Right.
And then in young adulthood, they're given a very narrow range of expression. And then in their adult life, they develop the fear of the feminine. So by the time we are adults in the world, women are oriented to the ethic of care and men are oriented toward the fear of the feminine. And this is the gap that we're experiencing. This is the problem that is creating the symptoms and the crimes that you're talking about, is that men are devoid of the experience and the expectation of care. And it has imploded. And women are overextended in the ethic of care where they are at risk of becoming selfless. And so these dichotomies create an experience in society that demoralizes our social system.
Definitely. Coming off of that point, would you then argue that really the place that this all has to begin from and stem from is the home? That in fact parents need to reimagine the way in which they parent their children, in which they raise them, to show them that in fact there are two sides to this, that the emotional must be upheld as much as the systematic, as much as the masculine side, right? That there must be a balance there. Do you think that there must be some education on that front to ensure that parents moving forward, that the modern parent serves their child in the proper way?
For sure. I think that that's a really important place when we talk about the spheres, the radial of gender equality, which is written about in the book. We have two places, right? We have the sphere of the economy, and then we have the sphere of business, the home. So we have the domestic sphere, and we have the economy, the business sphere. And women have been in both places. Women are well-rounded, and we are very capable of this thing of toggling between care and analytics, right? Men have not really been included in the domestic sphere, and that's where care is learned and care is given. So we really do need to bring men into the sphere of the domestic. They need to have the opportunity to care and the responsibility to care. So I wouldn't say there are two sides of it, even though we are oriented to this dichotomy. I love your questions, Reese. They're very stimulating and very generous questions. But again, I think this is a false dichotomy, and I think patriarchy creates a false dichotomy as though we're one or the other. We are a species together, and we are required for the sustainability of our species is to teach each other the things that we are more inclined, that we have a propensity for. And we haven't done that. We actually have created dichotomies where men do this and women do this, and and one takes advantage of the other. I think there's a story in the book, The Giving Tree. And the question at the end that we ask is this a giving tree or is it a selfish boy? Is this a story of giving or a story of stealing? When men are allowed to exist without reflecting on the needs of others, they will become more narcissistically or selfishly oriented. When women are taught and socialized to only think of the needs of others, we will become depleted. And so I would just, this is a sociological study. We are involved in a sociological study. And it's really, I think when we think about the future, what is really critical is rebuilding and bringing these spheres together. The only thing I would say about parenting, yes, of course, parents need to be oriented to giving their children more of both. But still, we have two people coming into a marriage that is based on some patriarchal norm. And so that has to change. And the environment around women would be fine going back and forth to work if there was childcare that they could trust, that men and women could trust.
Right.
If there was an extended family where, we could bring our extended family in to help and to expand the needs of the family. So I think the concept of family and of course, right now we're challenging whether or not people really need to be married or if they really need to have children. And we're in those ways, we're giving people more of an opportunity to make decisions for themselves based on what they need, what they have the capacity for, and really, is there an environment that will help them do that work as well?
Definitely.
So, yeah.
100%. Lorri, anything to add on your front?
I do think that, the idea of the family unit and parenting, it's each generation teaches their parents how to parent. And, we're always parents are trying to self-correct for their generational blind spots and mishaps. And, sometimes we get it right. Most of the time we probably get it wrong. You've heard the term hovercraft parenting. That hasn't helped, I don't think. And so, I think we need to look at parenting styles just like we would at leadership styles and say, what's really working or not. And as well, you can't parent your children the same. Regardless based on birth order or their interests or anything like that. And our parents really, truly adept at being able to understand their individual children's their growths and opportunities and help them find their way in that. But there has to be, some North Star, to a point, right? As soon as you would probably speak better to this than me, Stacy, at a certain point when you're 13 or 14, your parents have less influence on you and your peers have more influence on you. So, making sure you kind of get it right as a parent early on versus, later when maybe your influence, it will change. We all grew up and know what that's like. But, parenting comes from beyond your parents as well. School is challenged with parenting where parents are not. Teachers are under a lot of duress about that. And communities. So I think they could benefit from a more broader parenting style for kids, for people finding their way. And I would say kids of all ages, by the way, as we continue along our continuum.
Yeah, it's really the theme of the book, Reese, if we can just bring it back to the book as well. The theme of the book has to do with 4 core differentiators that women bring to society, that women bring to humanity, to our species, that has been purposefully, proactively, and intentionally left out of the paradigms that we use to run our lives. So when you mention seatbelts, more women die in car accidents than men because seatbelts are built for the average size of a man. We're discovering right now that we didn't even know what the term menopause was and what it, does. And now we have research that's coming out that's talking about women's experience. Women's experience has been left out, and it's necessary to round us out so that we can really deliver the positives, so we can conquer the negatives and the violence and the deepfake and the displaced workforce, and we can create environments that allow people to prosper together. We can't be thinking linearly. We need to be thinking systemically. We need to solve the problems for the many. And the 4 core differentiators, I just put it out there. Mutuality is the ability to learn about oneself and the world around them through the eyes of others. And for you, Reese, when you look at me, to have yourself reflected back in a way that helps you grow and expands your own sense of yourself. Right? It also requires us to care about each other, because if we're looking at each other, when you're driving, you can cut somebody off a lot easier until you make eye contact. And then you're much less likely to be willing to cut somebody off. So seeing each other. Ingenuity, again, the process of solving complex problems with novel solutions to serve the interests of many. Women deliver this because we raise children who are in multiple different developmental stages. And when they're in developmental stages, mothers need to find new solutions as their children grow, right? So we're ingenious in how we build communities. We serve the needs of many, but we also have to get the whole family to grandma's house in one car. So there's ingenuity built in the way women think about systems. Justness, our definition of justice in community is the full and fair representation of people. We need to have our voices heard, and we need transparent and consistent measures and means for due process when things aren't right, so that we can solve problems that are small before they become huge paparazzi issue into a deepfake issue because we've crossed the line. And we cross the line because we're more oriented to the needs of an individual than the needs of the community. We don't make decisions based on the needs of the community. We make decisions based on the needs of one company, of one revenue stream, of one achievement of cost per earnings, quarterly earnings. So we get into this mindset of linear. And then the final fourth core differentiators is intrinsic motivation. And intrinsic motivation is the willingness to go beyond one's own narrow self-interest to serve the needs of the community, right? And to know that the community is going to watch out for my back. So when we begin to bring women's sensibility to defining society, we don't have these problems. These problems are built because there's a system that's oriented to one set of mechanisms, one paradigm, and it's divisive, it's dichotomous, and it's divisive, right? Mm-hmm. So we really need to step out of patriarchy, examine it, dissect it, and create a new paradigm that serves the many.
Definitely. As we look ahead to the future and prepare for what future leadership looks like, what is your advice? What should we become? And what should we strive to become to be the best leaders of the future? And in what ways should we be different from yourselves? In what ways should we prioritize one thing over the other? And in what ways should we be more technical or more generalist in this age of technology, of course, and the advancements that we're seeing there? So what are those changes that you see between the future generation of leaders and the current generation of leaders?
Well, I think the book proposes this. It outlines it in many ways throughout the whole book, what the history is, where we come from, right. What has been problematic, what causes us to deflate and to kind of implode and not take, and all the way to the vision for the future on how we can care for and develop communities that are prosperous, profitable, and also sustainable. So there's a big part of this that we haven't talked about, which is the sustainability. It's the long-term survival of the species. So if we're oriented to that, which we have lacked a vision for, then I think we are making big strides forward. There is one thing in chapter 3 that is introduced. It's the neuropsychological concept of toggling. And toggling is a neurological experience. The brain has two sides, where it is analytical and the other side emotive, and they operate in a mutually exclusive way. So when you're emoting, you aren't thinking analytically, and when you're analytical, you're not necessarily emoting. And women have been trained to do both. So we're very good at toggling, at moving between the emotive and the analytical. And when we are able to do that, we're able to solve problems in ingenious ways. Men have a toggling deficit. They've been oriented towards the analytic and not the emotive. So if we really want to close the gap between men and women, if we really want to close the gap and move away from an individual, autonomous, separation-oriented framework to a more collective, mutual ethic of care, then we will help men and all of us toggle better. I think toggling is a very critical component to, and it's neurologic, and it's something that we can begin to practice. The more practiced we are, the better able we are to solve problems to meet the needs of many.
Definitely. And Lorri?
I'm going to come at it at a different view and perspective. That is all correct. So when you get down to the day-to-day, things are moving so fast, right? One thing becomes a million overnight, right? Likes or trends, technology, the speed of technology, you can do all that research. And I think the best thing we can do as humans, humanity, is to stop and think, take a breath. Going from 0 to 100 is not the plan. People are going right to anger, right to defensiveness, right to responsiveness, and it's not helping. I I literally this morning just watched a Facebook clip of Mr. Rogers, who said, there's so much noise. His fear of the future, and this was Mr. Rogers, was that there's too much noise and not enough quiet or peace or ability to reflect and make good decisions, time to pivot the right way. Because what we're finding is when things go bad and people just need to get out the PR marketing response to something so fast that it continues to be an opposition and not a collective. So if I can give anyone advice is stop being reactive, stop going to the anger phase, and take a breath and get clarity and realize you have blind spots. Ask other people for advice. If it's not a crisis, don't create it like don't react to it like a crisis.
Yeah.
Take the time to figure it out, because all you're going to do is put something out that's going to get immediate scrutiny, no matter what it is. So be prepared for that.
Amazing.
Yeah. And stop thinking about ourselves. What's the impact on others?
Right.
I think that's the big missing piece is we are so self-oriented. Our needs, our identity, our expectations, what we want, what we don't. We are, so immature psychologically. We have so devolved from our potential. We are so far removed from our ability to shape our lives the way we want them with the people who encourage us. So, it's really about how is my behavior impacting others, and how can we find ways to work together?
Definitely. So, what is the plan for the future of this movement, the 6th level?
We are in the process of evolving it. So we're in phase 3, and that's within 2 years. So the model, the 6th level, is really a framework.
Right.
It's not a prescription. It can be used by any style of leadership. So if you talk about yourself as a primal leader or a servant leader or whatever version of leader, these 4 core differentiators can match and be useful for creating the environments that will make leaders successful. And that's what we're in the process of doing. We're in the process of bringing voices together on how to make the 4 core differentiators adaptive. How can they be adopted into organizations so that these principles create the environment for organizations to base their long-term plans against? There will be things like biomes in organizations, or there will be methodologies for mergers and acquisitions that bring in the how to make this right for the people. There will be, there's one of the essayists writes about fashion that she created. And then during the pandemic, they needed something, those one-piece suits, and they used to be disposable. Well, she created from her fabric ones that could be washed. So that was pro-planet. It was cost-effective, and it allowed for organizations and healthcare systems to have this fashion, this new technology to serve that industry. So I think it's really us coming together and solving problems together, and really a platform for doing it.
Amazing.
Yes, and the other tactical approach is we're going across the country.
Right.
So we're going to workshops, we're going to cities. You can go to the website and see where we're headed. We're hitting college campuses, we're going to conferences. Our idea is to bring our community along with us, not to steal Taylor Swift's thunder on her ability to grow her business. We are receptive to things, and when people ask us, we're talking about doing workshops. We're talking about building curriculum. We're talking about doing some test pilots of things to see if they work in which environment. So we are going to be interacting with our audience as much as possible and answering the things that they want to see out of the book. There are questions in the book that can be answered by individuals reading it, but we would like to bring people together cross-functionally in roles and committees or in companies, within companies. And so we are going to grow this into something that will be bigger than ourselves.
We just had our first 6th level retreat in Colorado. Jack is doing a podcast for men, the significant others of 6th level women. So yeah, we're doing a lot of those kinds of tactical things across the country.
Amazing. Where is the next stop? Do we know?
Oh, well, that's a great question. So we are going to be in DC May 16th with Mindshare. We will be in Chicago June 13th with Chief, which is an executive organization for executive women. We will be in Houston with Megan Eddings. We will be in Atlanta with Stephanie Stuckey and Niti Dewal, and then we will be in Phoenix with Jennifer Fondrave.
Amazing. And anyone can come and attend?
Yes, everybody can come and attend. Again, if you go to the website, you'll see our tour schedule, and you can register at the www.the6thlevel.com.
Yes, and you can also order the 6th level, your own copy on the website and Amazon as well.
Yes. And the ebook.
And the ebook. And I believe the Audible is in production.
Not quite in production.
Not in production yet, but
in thought.
Soon to be.
Yeah, on the way.
Yeah, so that will soon be out. So I highly recommend anyone to head over and get your own copy. And check out the events. And if you're near any of them, please stop by and meet these amazing ladies and chat.
Yeah, and I'll just say, if you have a collection of people who have read the book and you want a 1-hour Zoom with the authors or the contributors, we will oblige.
Amazing. Perfect. Well, Lorri, Stacy, I want to thank you all so much for coming on, and thank you for everything you've done this weekend. I mean, the book tour event was amazing. Of course, amazing seeing you at Jack's retirement party as well. And yeah, thanks for joining us.
So, Reese Wilson, thanks for being the famous, fabulous intern at the center the Centennial Center for Leadership, Entrepreneurship, and Innovation. You and Autumn, awesome interns. And so
Olivia. Olivia's a third. You've not met Olivia yet, but.
And Anne-Marie Luce.
Yes.
And Susan Pleiner. So thank you, everybody, for having us. And Hobart and William Smith for doing such a great job with you, Reese. You're awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, guys.
And stay in touch. We want to see what's next for you.
Of course. All right. Thanks, guys.
Sure.